How we doing, Colorado? It's hard to see you all. It's getting a little snuggy. Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, listen. A lot of people. Listen. Devin invited me out, and she was very apologetic to saying that I was coming at the tail end. There would be a lot of people gone, and I said it's not a problem. Why? Because when we go back to the origins of an independent United States of America, the original, the founding fathers, when Thomas Jefferson and John Adams went out recruiting and started talking about the fact that we were going to break from the aristocracy, there was 2.5 million people living in the 13 original colonies. 2.5 million people are representative of the Denver metro area right now. Right? But listen, out of the people living in the colonies, 1/3 of the population wanted to remain under British rule. 1/3. They wanted to remain under the oligarchy. 1/3 of the population didn't give a shit. 1/3 of the population didn't care if we were under British rule or under an independent state. The last third said, listen, I would love to be independent, but I'm busy. There was a fraction, less than 3% of Americans that wanted to break from the aristocracy stood up and fought for what they believed in. That is what we have in Bernie Sanders supporters today. I don't know, 3 days ago, it was Earth Day, April 22nd. I was called out the day beforehand to come out. They said, we want you to come out to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I actually met with Bernie Sanders to talk about the veteran outreach that's going to be taking place in the United States today. I can't imagine a presidential candidate reaching out to veterans or any, I don't care if you, whatever you support. Can you imagine, at no cost, a presidential candidate saying, come out here, I need to know what it is that you want. So I had 24 hours notice that only 8 of us, 8 people, flew out from different states and met on Earth Day at 1:30 in the afternoon. We sat with Bernie Sanders for 45 minutes to discuss how we were going to address the veterans' issues in the military in the United States today. I'm telling you, it was visceral because, for one, I had to fly into Philadelphia. There was only one flight that I was going to catch. And I don't know if any of you have actually sat down. A lot of us are familiar with the Declaration of Independence. Has anybody read it? Right? We all know it, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal and inherited that by your Creator are certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But there's the next paragraph, and I want to read it verbatim. I do not want to paraphrase this. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among the people, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as they seem the most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Ladies and gentlemen, I was in the Army for 11 years. I'm going to take you all back to a war-torn Bosnia and Herzegovina. In the mid-90s, while many of us were probably in high school or junior high, one of the worst crimes against humanity occurred in Central Europe against the Bosnian people, the former Yugoslavia. I was called in, our unit was deployed. We left, I hit there the summer of 1997. The war had ended in 95, and it was August of 96 was the first time that they had had a Democratic election for the president. Now they said that we're going to hold these elections. Now ask yourself if this rings true to you. Listen to this. They said, we'll let you have elections, but there's certain conditions you have to meet. For one, it has to be a fair election. You cannot have any propaganda for any candidate within 150 feet of a door of anywhere, of any polling site. The media has to be fair and unbiased, which means they can only report on the truth of the day. And no one can try to influence the voters. This was in 1996, war-torn Bosnia. When I went there in 1997, we had a partner. I was augmented to NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and we had to drive our tanks, our Humvees, with large caliber weapons. We had to send out patrols with M16s to walk around the polling sites to make sure that everybody's right to vote was held. Did you get this? A foreign body, the United States, had to send tanks and Humvees with weapons to oversee a democratic election in the war-torn Bosnia of 1996. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a new democracy. They had been under communist rule up to that point, under Tito. We live in the United States of America, a country that has been a republic for 240 years. You think we did something right. But today we have voters that are going to polling sites being lied to, manipulated with propaganda. There's more voter suppression and fraud taking place here. And do we have to reach out to a foreign body and ask them to come in waving guns to make sure that you and I can go out and vote fairly? Is that the America we live in? Absolutely not. We have to draw a line in the sand. This is what I'm hearing from the Democratic National Committee. They say, these are the rules. We have to play by the rules. You wrote the rules. You rigged it for us to lose. This isn't democracy. So what are we going to do? Are we going to wait? Here's what Arizona said. Arizona said, we're going to wait until after the general election, once the president is decided, and then we're going to go fix it. That's what they said. We're going to fix it after the fact. Same as New York. Folks, I was watching Pennsylvania. I just flew into Pennsylvania. I was watching Pennsylvania like a hawk, and story after story after story of people that went in, were lied, manipulated to stop the threat. And we saw who won Pennsylvania. Every time somebody wins a state, it seems like there's a shadow of fraud and manipulation involved. So we have to decide as Americans, are we going to continue to accept it? No. Absolutely not. Fuck no. I love that. So we have to decide, are we going to draw a line in the sand? Folks, countless lives throughout American history have been given in order for you and I to have the right to vote. Women faced beatings, torture, thrown in small jail cells in order for women's suffrage to become a reality. That women had the right to vote. That African Americans had the right to vote. They were hung from trees. And now we're saying, well, I can't ask off work in order to go vote. It is the obligation of every American citizen to exercise their right to vote. It's a right. It's not a privilege. I am so disgusted when I look at the voter turnout and I see 15 to 20% of registered voters are actually showing up in force. This is the new American Revolution. Let us fight. And I want to read to everybody, flying in. This was from Bernie Sanders when we were in Gettysburg. I want everybody to understand this. This came from Abraham Lincoln in 1863. This was the end of his Gettysburg Address. Listen to this. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause that they gave their last measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation shall give birth to a new freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. So if we're going to fight, we need to do it right now. We can't wait for the next administration to fix it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to serve Bernie Sanders and all of my fellow citizens.